15-year-old Aaliyah Brooks carried a composition notebook everywhere she went. It was black and white, the standard marble pattern, with a cracked spine and pages that had swollen from being written in so many times that the cover no longer closed flat. Inside were 214 entries, one for every day since her mother's diagnosis. The entries were not diary entries. They were instructions. Each page began with a date and a header that read Mom's Day, and beneath it, in Aaliyah's careful handwriting, was a schedule. What time to give the anti-nausea medication, what foods were safe to eat that week, which pharmacy had the prescription ready, what time the home health aide arrived and left, how many hours until the next round of chemo, what lies to tell the neighbors when they asked why Angela Brooks had not been to church in 3 months. The notebook had no lock. It did not need one. No one in the Brooks household touched it except Aaliyah, because no one in the Brooks household knew how much the 15-year-old had taken over. On February 8, 2024, Aaliyah stood at the Fast Money podium on Family Feud with that notebook in the back pocket of her jeans. She never went anywhere without it, and scored 199 points, 1 point short of $20,000. And when Steve Harvey walked toward her with the consolation line ready, Aaliyah looked at him and said, "Mr. Steve, I'm playing for my mom's chemo. She doesn't know I'm here." Steve Harvey stopped walking. He looked at this girl, 15 years old, small for her age, wearing a blouse her grandmother had ironed that morning and earrings she had borrowed from her aunt, and his eyes filled before he could stop them. He pressed his hand against his face. His shoulders dropped. He stood on his own stage, in front of his own cameras, in front of 300 people, and cried. Not silently, not discreetly. He cried the way a man cries when a child says something that breaks through every wall he has ever built. It was February 8, 2024, a Thursday afternoon, and the Family Feud studio had the buzzing energy of a taping day that had been running smoothly. Steve had come out for the second session of the day in high spirits, joking about Valentine's Day being a week away, asking audience members about their plans, pulling laughs from both families during warm-ups. The Brooks family stood on the left side of the stage. Aaliyah, her grandmother Loretta, her Aunt Diane, her Uncle Wayne, and her older cousin Demetrius. They wore matching rose-colored shirts with white lettering that read Brooks Nation. On the right side stood the Kowalski family from Chicago, a boisterous Polish-American family of 5 whose matriarch, a retired schoolteacher named Barbara, had been making Steve laugh with her deadpan delivery since introductions. Steve moved through the lineup and paused at Aaliyah. "How old are you, sweetheart?" he asked. Aaliyah said 15. Steve said, 15? You are the youngest person on this stage by about 30 years. The audience laughed. Aaliyah smiled, a quick, bright smile that appeared and disappeared with the efficiency of someone who had learned to deploy smiles strategically, to deflect attention, to signal that everything was fine. Loretta stood behind her granddaughter with one hand resting lightly on Aaliyah's shoulder, and the hand did not move for the entire introduction, and if Steve noticed the grip or the way Aaliyah leaned back into it almost imperceptibly, he did not say so. But the real story hadn't even started yet. Angela Marie Brooks was 41 years old, and she had been fighting stage 3 breast cancer for 7 months. The lump she found in the shower on a Tuesday morning in July of 2023 was the size of a marble. She called her doctor. The mammogram was scheduled for the following week. The biopsy was the week after that. The results came on a Friday afternoon while Angela was sitting in the parking lot of the grocery store in Stockbridge, Georgia, with a cart full of food she would never unload. The oncologist said, invasive ductal carcinoma, stage 3, HER2 positive. Angela sat in the car for 45 minutes after the call. The frozen foods melted. She drove home, put the groceries away without mentioning the melted ice cream, and waited until Aaliyah and her younger son Caleb, who was 9, were asleep before she went to the bathroom and looked at herself in the mirror and said, out loud, to no one, "Okay." Angela was a single mother. She had been raising Aaliyah and Caleb alone since their father died in a car accident on I-75 in 2017. Kevin Brooks had been 34 years old. He had been driving home from a night shift at a tire manufacturing plant in Hampton. He fell asleep at the wheel. The car crossed the median. There was no other vehicle involved. Angela received a $40,000 life insurance payout, which she used to pay off Kevin's truck loan, cover the funeral, and put a down payment on a small house in Stockbridge so the children could stay in their school district. By the time the insurance money was allocated, there was $3,200 left. Angela put it in savings and went back to work. She was a phlebotomist at a blood draw clinic in Jonesboro, making $17.50 an hour. The cancer treatment plan was aggressive. 6 rounds of chemotherapy followed by surgery followed by radiation. The estimated out-of-pocket cost, after insurance covered its portion, was $34,000. Angela's insurance, through her employer, covered chemotherapy drugs at 80%. It covered surgery and hospital stays at 70% after a $4,500 deductible. It did not cover the targeted therapy drug, trastuzumab, that Angela's oncologist said was essential for HER2 positive cancer, and that could reduce her recurrence risk by nearly half. The targeted therapy cost $54,000 for a full course. The insurance company classified it as specialty medication requiring step therapy and denied the initial authorization, stating that Angela must first fail on a less expensive protocol before the requested drug could be considered. Angela's oncologist said the step therapy requirement was clinically inappropriate for her cancer type and wrote a letter stating so. The letter was submitted with the first appeal. The appeal was denied. A second appeal was filed with supporting documentation from 2 oncologists. It was denied. The denial letter was 3 sentences long and referenced policy guidelines that Angela's oncologist said were 4 years out of date. Angela told Aaliyah and Caleb that the doctors were giving her medicine, and it was working. She told Loretta that insurance was covering everything. She told Diane that the bills were manageable. She went to chemo every 3 weeks and came home and vomited quietly in the bathroom with the fan running so the children would not hear. She lost her hair in October. She told the kids she wanted to try a new look and bought 2 wigs, one for $45 at a beauty supply store, one for $30 at a thrift shop. Aaliyah helped her adjust them in the mirror. Angela smiled and said she looked like Bianca. Caleb said she looked like Grandma. Everyone laughed. Aaliyah was not fooled. She was 15 years old and she was her mother's daughter, observant, quiet, and relentless. She noticed the weight loss. She noticed the bathroom fan running at 2 a.m. She noticed the stack of envelopes from the insurance company that Angela shoved into a kitchen drawer without opening. One afternoon in October, while Angela was at chemo and Caleb was at a friend's house, Aaliyah opened the drawer. She read every letter. She read the denials. She read the amounts. She read the words "not medically necessary" and "step therapy required" and "does not meet criteria," and she sat at the kitchen table and processed the information the way she processed everything. Methodically, silently, completely. She did not confront her mother. She did not tell Loretta. She did not cry. She went to her bedroom and took out a composition notebook, a new one, bought for school but never used, and she wrote the date at the top of the first page, and beneath it she wrote, "Mom's Day 1." and she began to track everything. Within a month, Aaliyah had taken over the management of her mother's illness without Angela's knowledge. She organized the medications. She researched side effects. She adjusted meal plans based on what she read about chemo-related nausea, bland proteins in the morning, ginger tea at midday, small portions every 3 hours. She set alarms on her phone for medication times. She called the pharmacy to check on refills. She coordinated with the home health aide, who came twice a week. A woman named Patricia, who was surprised when a 15-year-old called her to confirm schedules and asked detailed questions about her mother's vitals. Patricia told Aaliyah she was doing an incredible job. Aaliyah said thank you and hung up and added Patricia's observations to the notebook. She also did the math. She went through the kitchen drawer and calculated the total outstanding balance, $34,000 in accumulated bills, plus the $54,000 for the trastuzumab that insurance would not cover. She calculated her mother's income, $2,800 a month after taxes. She calculated the mortgage, the utilities, the car payment, the groceries, the copays. She calculated everything, in the same careful handwriting, in the back of the notebook. And when the numbers were done, she sat at her desk and stared at them and understood, with the clarity of a child who has been forced to think like an adult, that her mother was going to run out of money before she ran out of cancer. Aaliyah got a job. She did not tell her mother. She told Angela she had joined an after-school tutoring program. Instead, she walked to a bakery 3 blocks from her school and worked the counter from 3:30 to 6:30 3 afternoons a week, making $9.50 an hour. She made $114 a week. She put every dollar into an envelope in her dresser drawer labeled Mom. In 4 months, she saved $1,824. One evening in January, Aaliyah was sitting on Angela's bed, helping her adjust her wig for a doctor's appointment the next morning. Angela's face was thin. Her collarbone stood out sharply beneath her shirt. Her hands trembled slightly when she reached up to fix the wig's edge. Aaliyah was gentle, tucking the synthetic hair behind her mother's ear, smoothing the edges, making sure it sat right. She was quiet. Angela looked at her daughter in the mirror and said, "Baby, why are you so serious all the time now?" Aaliyah said, "I'm not serious, Mama. I'm focused." Angela smiled and said, "Focused on what?" And Aaliyah, without thinking, without planning, said, "On keeping you alive." Angela's smile disappeared. She looked at her daughter in the mirror. Aaliyah looked back. Neither of them spoke. Then Angela said, "Baby, that's not your job." And Aaliyah said, "It is now." Angela reached for Aaliyah's hand. They sat like that for a long time. Angela did not ask what Aaliyah knew. She did not want the answer. And Aaliyah did not offer it because she had already decided that the answer was not something her mother needed to carry. It was Demetrius who told Aaliyah about Family Feud. He had seen auditions posted online. Aaliyah said yes immediately, the fastest yes anyone in the family had ever heard from her. They auditioned in late January. They got the call 1 week later. Aaliyah told Angela she was going on a school trip. She took the composition notebook. She took the $1,824 in the envelope. She wore the blouse Loretta ironed and the earrings Diane lent her, and she drove to Atlanta with her family and a number in her head, $54,000, and a plan that was not a plan but a prayer shaped like a game show. And that wasn't even the part that made Steve cry. The Brooks family won the main game 195-89. Aaliyah was remarkable at the podium, fast, precise, fearless, answering with a certainty that made the audience cheer after every response. Steve looked at her after the 3rd round and said, "Girl, you might be the best player I've had all year." Aaliyah said, "Thank you, Mr. Steve." When they qualified for Fast Money, Steve said, "Aaliyah, This is your moment." Aaliyah nodded once. Her face was calm. Her hands were steady. The notebook was in her back pocket. Demetrius went first and scored 147. Solid. When Aaliyah stepped up, Steve read the 5 questions. She answered all 5 in 13 seconds. The board lit up. 16, 12, 9, 11, 4. The total climbed to 199. 1 point. The studio fell completely silent. Aaliyah stood at the podium. She did not fall. She did not cry. She looked at the number and her lips pressed together and her chin lifted slightly. The gesture of a person who is refusing to break. And she stood there, 15 years old, in her borrowed earrings and ironed blouse, with 214 days of instructions in a notebook in her back pocket, and $1,824 in an envelope in her grandmother's purse, and the weight of her mother's life on her shoulders. Steve walked toward her with the cue card. "Aaliyah, Misty, Steve," she said, cutting him off. Her voice was steady, clear, almost formal. "I'm playing for my mom's chemo. She has cancer. She doesn't know I'm here. She thinks I'm on a school trip. I've been saving money from a job she doesn't know I have. I have a notebook in my pocket with every day of her treatment written down. I take care of her. I take care of my brother. I take care of everything. And I needed this money because the insurance company won't pay for the medicine that's going to save her life." She said all of it in one breath. She said it looking directly at Steve Harvey. She did not waver. The studio fell completely silent. 300 people sat in their seats and did not move, and did not breathe, and looked at a 15-year-old girl who had just told the truth she had been carrying alone for 7 months. Steve Harvey's face broke. Not slowly, not gradually. His eyes filled, and the tears spilled over, and his hand went to his face, and he pressed his palm against his mouth, and his shoulders dropped, and he cried. He cried on the stage of his own show, in front of his own cameras, in front of 300 strangers, and he did not try to stop. He did not turn away. He did not compose himself. He stood 4 feet from Aaliyah Brooks and wept because a child had just described a life that no child should have to live, and because she had described it with the calm, methodical precision of someone who had been doing it so long she had forgotten it was extraordinary. The audience was silent. The crew was silent. A cameraman had lowered his rig to his side. 2 producers in the wing were crying. A makeup artist near the green room had slid down the wall to the floor. Steve wiped his face with both hands. He took a breath. He walked to Aaliyah. He stood in front of her. "Aaliyah," he said, his voice rough, raw, breaking on the syllables. "You are 15 years old. You are 15. And you have been managing your mother's cancer for 7 months without telling her. You have been going to school and going to a job and tracking her medicine in a notebook and cooking her meals and taking care of your brother and saving money in an envelope, and you told nobody." He paused. He looked at her. "Let me tell you something. There was a time in my life when I had nothing. And an old man I never met before, a stranger at a gas station, looked at me and said, 'Son, God's got a plan bigger than your pain.' That man didn't know me. He owed me nothing. He just stopped and spoke. Aaliyah, you are 15 years old, and you have been the stranger who stopped for your mother every single day for 7 months. You have been the plan. And I am not going to let you carry this alone for 1 more day." Steve turned to the producers. "Stop the taping. Right now. This has never happened in my 15 years on this show, and I don't care. We are stopping." No one argued. The studio fell completely silent. Steve pulled out his phone. "Marjorie, it's Steve. Listen to me. I've got a 15-year-old girl here named Aaliyah Brooks. Her mother Angela has stage 3 breast cancer. She needs trastuzumab, and the insurance denied it 3 times. $54,000. I want it covered. All of it. Call Angela's oncologist at Aaliyah, what hospital? Piedmont Henry, Aaliyah said, her voice still steady, still calm. Still the voice of a girl who had been managing this for 7 months and was not going to stop being competent now just because she was being rescued. Piedmont Henry, Steve repeated. Get the oncologist on the phone tonight. Start the treatment this week. And Marjorie, I want the family's outstanding medical bills covered too. All of them. The $34,000. Everything, set it up. Marjorie confirmed. The audience erupted. Loretta collapsed into Wayne. Diane was sobbing. Demetrius had both hands on top of his head, pacing in a circle. Aaliyah stood at the podium. She had not moved. Her hands were at her sides. Her chin was still lifted. And then, slowly, without sound, without drama, a single tear rolled down her left cheek. It was the first tear she had shed since the day she opened the kitchen drawer and read the denial letters. 1 tear. 7 months of composure, broken by 1 tear. But Steve wasn't done. Give this family the $20,000, he said. She's 15. She scored 199. She has been saving money from a secret job to pay for her mother's cancer treatment. Give her the money. The producer nodded. Steve wasn't finished. He walked to the Kowalski family. Barbara Kowalski, the retired schoolteacher, was standing with both hands pressed against her chest, tears streaming down her face. Her son Michael had his arm around her. Steve looked at them and said, Your family is getting $20,000 too. Barbara crossed the stage. She did not go to Aaliyah. She went to Loretta, grandmother to grandmother, and she took Loretta's hands and said, You raised that girl. Whatever you did, whatever you taught her daughter, it made this child. She is the strongest person in this room. And that started with you. Loretta broke. She fell into Barbara's arms and wept, and Barbara held her. And 2 grandmothers from 2 different worlds stood on a game show stage and held each other while a 15-year-old girl with a composition notebook watched with dry eyes and a single tear track on her left cheek. Steve turned to the camera. His eyes were swollen. His voice was thick. I want to talk to everyone watching at home. There are children in this country right now who are doing what Aaliyah Brooks has been doing. They are managing medications. They are cooking meals. They are calling pharmacies and scheduling appointments and keeping notebooks and going to school and holding everything together while the adults in their lives are too sick to see it. They are called young caregivers. There are over 5 million of them in America. 5 million children carrying an adult's burden, and most of them will never stand on a stage and say it out loud. So I am saying it for them. See these children. Help these children. They are not asking for help. They will never ask. You have to notice. The cameras ran 20 minutes past the scheduled stop. 7 crew members were crying. The head producer later told an interviewer it was the only taping in her career where she forgot she was producing and simply watched. When the episode aired 6 weeks later, on March 21, 2024, the clip of Aaliyah saying I'm playing for my mom's chemo, she doesn't know I'm here, was viewed 467 million times in 90 days. The hashtag Aaliyah's Notebook trended worldwide for 10 consecutive days. The image of the composition notebook, black and white marble pattern, cracked spine, swollen pages, became a symbol in young caregiver advocacy circles. 14 organizations adopted the notebook as their emblem. 3 state legislatures introduced bills to create support programs for young caregivers within 4 months of the episode airing, citing Aaliyah's story. Angela began trastuzumab therapy 6 days after the taping. The full course was administered at Piedmont Henry Hospital. Steve and Marjorie Harvey covered the entire cost, along with all outstanding medical bills. When Angela found out, Aaliyah told her the night of the taping, sitting on her bed, holding the notebook open to day 1, showing her everything. Angela looked at her daughter and could not speak for a very long time. Then she said, "You did all of this?" And Aaliyah said, "I told you, Mama. It's my job now." Angela took the notebook from Aaliyah's hands, closed it, and put it on the nightstand. She said, "No, baby. It was your job. It's not anymore." 3 months after the episode aired, Angela's oncologist reported that the trastuzumab was working. The tumor markers were dropping. The prognosis had improved significantly. A year after the taping, Angela went into remission. She called Loretta first. Then Diane. Then she drove to Aaliyah's school and pulled her out of 4th period chemistry and told her in the school parking lot. Aaliyah did not cry. She smiled, the real one, not the strategic one, and she said, "I know, Mama. I already called Dr. Patel this morning. She told me the results before she told you." The excess donations, which exceeded $6.8 million, were used to establish the Aaliyah's Notebook Foundation. Its motto, taken from what Aaliyah said to her mother, is, "It's my job now." The foundation provides financial support, respite care, and educational resources for young caregivers. Children under 18 who serve as primary or secondary caregivers for ill family members. To date, it has supported 30,200 young caregivers across 31 states. It has funded respite care for 8,100 families. It has established a scholarship program that has sent 247 young caregivers to college. Today, Aaliyah Brooks is 17 years old. She is a junior in high school with a 4.3 GPA. She wants to be a nurse. Angela is 43, in remission, and back at work. Caleb is 11 and complains that Aaliyah bosses him around, which she does, because she spent 2 years managing an entire household and has not fully recalibrated her sense of authority. On Aaliyah's desk, next to her laptop and a stack of app biology flashcards, sits the composition notebook. It is closed. The spine is cracked. The pages are swollen. The cover does not close flat. Aaliyah has not written in it since the day Angela went into remission. But she keeps it on her desk, where she can see it, where she can touch it when the memory surfaces. Not the fear, not the math, not the denials, but the feeling of being 15 years old and deciding that if nobody else was going to save her mother, she would do it herself. 1 page at a time, 1 day at a time, one careful entry after another, until the notebook was full and the cancer was gone, and the girl at the desk could finally put down the pen. The notebook is closed now. The pen is down, and sometimes that is enough. Sometimes the bravest thing a child can do is not pick up the burden, it is put it down. And sometimes the most important page in a notebook full of instructions is the blank one at the end. The one that was never written on, because the person who kept it did not need to write anymore, because her mother was alive, and the medicine worked, and the job was done, and the 15-year-old girl who carried everything could finally be 15. If this incredible story of Aaliyah and Angela touched your heart, subscribe to this channel and hit the like button. Share this with someone who believes it is never too late to be seen, or to see the child who has been carrying everything in silence. Have you ever watched a young person hold a family together? Share your story in the comments. Because as Aaliyah Brooks proved, love does not wait for you to be old enough. It just hands you the notebook and trusts you to fill it.